मैं हूं आपका होस्ट और दोस्त ब्रिज कुमार। लेकर के आ गया हूं वही शो जिसे आप कहते हैं दिल की बात। बिल्कुल दिल की बात करने के लिए ही आज हम सब यहां पर आए हुए हैं। कहते हैं ना कि योगक्षेमम वहाम्यहम्। जो योग की शरण में चला जाता है उसे और किसी शरण की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती। जिंदगी में इतनी भागा दौड़ी मच चुकी है, जिंदगी इतनी फास्ट हो चुकी है कि लोग समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं कि आखिरकार अपने लिए वक्त कैसे निकालें, अपने आप को फिट कैसे रखें। इसी सिलसिले में मेरे कई ब्रिजवाणी को चाहने वाले लोगों ने, मित्रों ने कहा कि सब कुछ तो सही है, लेकिन हेल्थ रिलेटेड कोई सेगमेंट किया जाए तो इसमें भी मजा आ जाए। तो आज हमने इसी सिलसिले में एक बहुत ही जबरदस्त योगा इंस्ट्रक्टर, जो योगा थेरेपिस्ट भी हैं, उनको लेकर के आए हैं अपने शो में। आज हम उनसे बातचीत करेंगे, आज समझने की कोशिश करेंगे कि योगा को जिंदगी में कैसे आसान बनाया जाए, कैसे आखिरकार जिंदगी के इस भाग दौड़ में हम योगा को एक्चुअली इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं। तो आइए स्वागत करते हैं, लंदन से हमारे साथ जुड़ रही हैं मीनाक्षी परमार जी। मीनाक्षी परमार जी, वेलकम टू आवर शो। ब्रिजवाणी पे आपका स्वागत है। हाउ आर यू डूइंग टुडे?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's good to see you, and it's our privilege to have you on our show.
Thank you.
So Meenakshi ji, as I mentioned before, the yoga is the art of living now, where we talk about, there are a lot of myths, about yoga. The people talk and say, yoga is not my cup of tea. Yoga is not that easy. I can't do Shirsasana. I can't do Bhujangasana, and all these big terms was being used in yoga. So tell us something first about yourself, what you do, and why yoga?
Yoga is, I would probably say yoga's probably been in my life right the way from childhood, but not really recognizing that it was there to be understood. And I never really grasped the understanding of yoga properly up until about, I'd say, about 5-10 years ago to really have an understanding. Wow. So it all kind of started off, obviously, when we were younger, and we would watch my parents, doing their puja in the morning every day, bhakti, japa. And I was really fascinated by that. So at the weekend, especially on a Sunday, I would wake up quite early because I could hear mummy, papa waking up. And I always used to hear Papa ringing the bell at the end of his puja and then take the agarbatti around the house. So that was all really quite fascinating. I wasn't quite sure exactly what Papa was doing. We understood prayer because we obviously come from the Hindu background as well. So I started waking up, sitting with him, watching him, what he would do, the mala, and then I would ring the bell. And it sort of all started from there. So as we grew up, one thing I remember very, very fondly about my mother, and obviously even to this day, she hasn't missed one day of a special day doing the fasting, like the Vrat, Ekadashi, the Shravan, the full Shravan month. And I always used to kind of quiz my mother, why are you doing this? Why? What is the reasoning behind that? And mum would always say she didn't know why, but she was doing it. So as I got older, I kind of got an understanding that whatever my mother followed, she followed everything to the T of the epitome of a daughter-in-law and a wife married into a Hindu family. And she hasn't missed one special day, even like on the ancestral days, on the deaths of certain ancestors. Mum hasn't missed a single day. And that was really, really inspiring to me to kind of watch all of that. So I kind of grew up into that. I remember in school that I was always into fitness. So I used to do relay, cross country, rounders, netball, all the things I think that was taught in PE at that time, and even sort of after school clubs that I would sort of do some of these things. which I really enjoyed. And then at home, I would practice sort of things like postures and that, but didn't quite really recognize that they were actually postures because I was doing gymnastics in school as well. And then it just sort of carried on from there. I was always doing something or another. And as I started to get older, and I remember when I was working as well, in my lunch hour breaks, I would actually go to do a fitness class. So it just sort of kind of all sort of carried on from that, to be quite honest. And it's kind of stayed with me kind of right the way where we are. But a lot of the teaching in kind of what mum and dad used to do when we were younger, I can very much sort of resonate with that definitely today. And kind of on my own journey of self-teaching is get a little bit more of an understanding in all the different vrat and all the different special days that mummy used to keep. I really get a full understanding of that kind of right now where I am sort of in my life. So yeah, which is amazing, really good.
Wow. Quite inspirational, isn't it? Like, we all see in our childhood, like, our parents, they used to do all these pujas and everything, and they have their own way of keeping themselves fit, but then when we talk about yoga is obviously from India, and we say yoga is a way to keep yourself fit, because we can go to the gym and we can start working on our muscles. We can start making, ourselves strong. But when it comes to your internal strength, we talk about yoga. So what you said is absolutely fantastic. But when exactly you thought कि आपको योगा लोगों को सिखाना चाहिए, कि आप लोगों की लिए योगा इंस्पिरेशन बने, ये कब हुआ?
That happened mostly after I got married. And I remember after getting married, so even before marriage, I was still like doing yoga classes, but obviously not having the understanding. But after I got married and after my children, I started to take on the qualification of yoga, where I was practicing at home and that. And it was at the gym where I was actually training and working. I happened to meet my very, very first yoga teacher, who ended up being my guru. Lovely man, lovely man. And he saw the potential in me when I walked in one day into his class. And at that stage, I was more sort of coming from an exercise to music kind of background, because I was teaching sort of fitness. And I trained as a fitness instructor. I'm a qualified personal trainer. So I was kind of from that background, that level. So what I used to do, it was really funny. My children would come to the gym with me because they would have numerous classes, because they were about like 4 and 5 at that stage. So my daughter was taking her to kind of like ballet, and my son was doing like the AstroTurf football. So where they would be doing their sessions, rather than watching them, I would be in the gym, and I would either be teaching a spinning class, because I'm a qualified spin instructor as well. So it kind of carried on from that. So during the week when I used to get time to go to the gym, this is where I bumped into my yoga teacher, lovely man. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2018. So I walked into his class one day, and obviously he welcomed me into his class, and he was teaching the class, and he was showing us how to do some of these yoga asanas, which I was able to do. But even though I was so good at doing the yoga asana, mentally, I wasn't quite detached to what I was actually doing. And he picked up on this straight away. So the first session, at the end of the session, he asked me to wait. He wanted to talk to me. And he really told me off, very much so. And he said to me, "You're very, very good at yoga asanas," he said, "Mina." But he goes, for me, it's like I'm working with a dead corpse. And that always stuck into my head, because I use that phrase right now with my clients. And what he actually meant by working with a dead corpse, it was that my body and mind were not connected.
Wow.
And it really, and to be honest, I was quite annoyed when he said that to me. But I went back again the following week to another class, and he actually said to me, he goes, I really didn't think you were going to come back, because he went up here, he went, you're all over the place. And he used his hands very much to kind of explain in what he was seeing in me. But I went back and I carried on working with him. And after about 3-4 months working with him, he approached me. And by this time, our kind of relationship as a student and a yoga guru really did start to develop at that time. And he said to me, you really have the makings to be a really brilliant yoga teacher. But he goes, you need a lot of work. And it was at that stage when he said that to me, I felt awfully humbled by what he had said. And I started actually listening to his advice after that. So that's kind of where it started.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's obviously anything requires a lot of dedication, a lot of passion. And somewhere I can, when you're talking about yoga, I can feel that passion in you, that how actually you tried getting into it. Even your teacher said something, which means if I would have been there, I was like, how dare he saying that to me. लेकिन क्या होता है कि कई बार जब हम चीजों को बहुत ज्यादा पसंद करते हैं, so we go for it. And I can kind of see, you're really busy with your yoga thing. You are always doing something related to yoga. I heard something, it's completely new to me, and I would like to know more about it from you. It's something, the neuro rehab thing. So what it is, the rehab thing regarding the new, yeah.
So neurological rehab, that kind of started. So I've been teaching yoga now for about a good 25 years now. That's kind of been my path, and I've been teaching yoga. So the company that I work with at the moment, I work on something called the exercise on the referral scheme. And the reason why I'm kind of taking you on this path, so you kind of get a bit of an understanding of what neurological rehab is. So whilst working for the London, for the local council, I kind of applied for this job. And I got this job actually, and it was exercise on referral. So what that basically means, it's a government initiated scheme where basically GPs around in the local council give exercise on prescription. That's kind of the best way to kind of explain it, because in England, where we are today, even before the COVID, we've had an epidemic of obesity for the last good few years, because my exercise referral worked directly in coinciding with public health and the NHS as well. So as a result of the epidemic of obesity, exercise referral kind of took its birth from there. So I kind of joined that company about 11 years ago. But what I didn't realize, I was working for one of the other branches in another area at that time, which I wasn't aware of. So I kind of joined onto that, and where I learned and started to gain experience in sort of working with patients with like cardiac problems. So I work on cardiac rehab and neurological rehab, but I run the neurological rehab as a one-man band, to be honest. So we get patients coming in every day. They have appointments booked with myself and my colleagues. Each appointment that I do with each patient lasts for 1 hour. So it's like a 1 hour medical PAR-Q that I do. So once I've kind of ascertained, for one, what their risk assessments are and levels are, then I ascertain what form of exercises that I can put these guys into. And then they come into the gym. We give them 12 sessions of exercise, and then we allow them to carry on a continual pathway. So the way neurological rehab took its birth, alongside the local council, I work for other 3 or 4 affiliated companies that are that actually work with our council. And what they do, and in one of them, I work with different groups where the government will give different groups around the community 20 sessions of exercise that are taught like by myself, instructors like myself and other instructors. So one of the ladies who actually runs this, she contacted me and she said, Mina, she was looking for an instructor who had experience, especially in the exercise referral scheme where I was working with patients. So she said she had a group that were all suffering from stroke. And there was a little stroke club based in one of the little towns not too far from where I am. And she said, I'd love you to go and do a little bit of chair yoga with these guys. And, you know, they are looking for something different. So fine. So I went and there was about 30 people, a range of people being in a chair, wheelchair, with all different forms of paralysis and debilitating effects of a stroke. And that was quite difficult to kind of see. I went in, I started to do like the 20-week program with them. So we did chair-based yoga. So a lot of the things that I did with them, I did the pranayama practices with them, which were really helpful. I did like the Bhavana Mukta Asana part 1, which is like the anti-rheumatic joint and muscle release movements with them. And so the 20 weeks kind of finished and they loved it. They didn't miss one session. And that was the most inspiring thing. And at the end of each session, I would give them like a 5-minute meditation. So just asking them to close their eyes, focusing on their breath, focusing at the forehead, at Ajna Chakra, the 6th energy center. So I started to give them work like that. So each time after each week I was doing this class, obviously I was going back to work again and, you know, kind of liaising with my boss and everything. And I was just saying, I was just so enthusiastic. And he just kind of said to me, my God, I was saying, I want to do stroke rehab. I said, I want to set it up. And he was amazing. So we sat down, we had a couple of meetings and I said, exactly like the way we run cardiac rehab, I said, I want to set up stroke rehabilitation. But I said, with that, I don't want it to be just stroke. I want it to be stroke and all forms of neurological conditions. So that's everything from stroke, TIAs, which is a mini stroke, MS, muscular dystrophy, motor neuron, cerebral palsy, and quite common traumatic brain injury. So we went to find a course, first of all, that I could do, which I found one. So this course is going to take me like about 6 to 9 months to kind of complete. So I was kind of traveling from London to Surrey and up into the city at the UCL, where a lot of my lectures were held over there as well. Wow. And UCL is one of the most amazing neurological hospitals, obviously in England, but obviously renowned throughout the world as well. So we did some training over there, and then obviously a lot of my lectures were sort of based up in Surrey as well, where I would have to stay overnight there because it was like 2-day seminars that we would have. So at the end of that, when I finished that, so the studying started in 2016 to the beginning, and at the end of 2015, which went on to coming nearer to the end of 2016. So in that time, whilst we were studying, we were also from work, my boss and myself, we were trying to find avenues who people would help us in to try and open up stroke rehab as a continual pathway, just like cardiac rehab is right now. So the phases kind of go for cardiac rehab, it's kind of 1 to 4. So 1 is the event that you have. Number 2 would be the intervention that you have. Phase 3 would be the in-hospital rehab you would have. And phase 4 would be the out-of-hospital rehabilitation that we do. So I kind of wanted to set up that scheme exactly with stroke rehab. But with stroke rehab, it was a little bit more difficult because of the nature of the debilitating effects of the stroke differed with every single stroke patient that I work with. So in hospital, they call the acute stroke wards, they are given about 6 weeks of rehab. And after that, they're just sent home, and they were not given anything else after that. So what I wanted to do was to pick up from where the hospital finished, and then they get straight sent to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so that happened. And then once I got hold of them, then I would give them a continual pathway for as long as they want.
Mm-hmm.
If you see what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
like I said, with the help of my boss and myself, who is amazing, he's just so motivating and really great, who actually helped set all of this up. And right now, where we are, I'm doing, when we were back at work, I did 2 sessions with them on a weekly basis. And then the year after 17, after we started that in 18, I started yoga for stroke. Wow. And that again was the help of one of the other bosses down at work, who was amazing. And we kind of set all that up along with my line manager as well. And now so then a lot of these patients, stroke patients who went from doing no exercises, now are actually doing a minimum of 3 days of exercises. Wow. And once they complete the rehabilitation phase, which is the 3-month period with myself, some of them have been coming to the gym almost every single day. We can't get rid of them now because they love it so much. But obviously, due to COVID, we're kind of restricted at the moment a little bit.
Kya baat hai, Minakshi ji. And you know what, we have heard mostly, I think everyone has heard, the mindfulness and meditation plays a big part in the yoga practice. Yeah. Definitely. And also yoga is a moving meditation. So it's great for people that feel like a seated meditation or mindfulness practice is difficult. But my question here is, do you think mindfulness and meditation plays a role in the yoga? Means that's what we have heard, but
if I can just clear one thing up, okay?
Yeah.
The way that I've studied and I've learned yoga, I try and keep yoga to be as authentic as possible, exactly the way it's been derived from Sanatana Dharma. So I try and keep the root authentic. I try not to entertain any Western jargon. I'll be really honest with that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I'm very much kind of strict in the way that I teach yoga as well. So when we were setting up the yoga and my boss said, I want to set up mindfulness, I said, look, I'm not going to call it mindfulness because it isn't mindfulness. It is meditation. I really want to stick to the authentic because I don't want to confuse people any more than they are. Some of the yoga classes had different names to it, like body calming and other kind of like aerobatic yoga. So I said, no, it's either yoga or it's nothing. Otherwise, I'm not going to put my name on something that's kind of been invented out of yoga and it has been changed to kind of suit certain minorities. I'm not going to do that. So I'm keeping yoga as exactly what yoga is and exactly in the way that I've learned it and keep it to its ancient, authentic roots. So that's what I've done. So in that way, I've had a few confrontations. I'm not going to say I haven't, but I've really stuck by my guns because I don't want yoga to be changed. So that's really important. So coming back to your question about... Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, please go on. Please go on, Minakshi.
Okay, so coming back to your question about meditation, and you said about moving meditation. So we can talk people through meditation. So there's quite a few like different forms of meditation kriyas that you can do. Yoga Nidra is like what we call a meditation, but where you would be in a psychic sleep. So you're fully aware of your surroundings, but we would talk groups through that meditation where they are able to connect with different parts of their bodies. There's one meditation that's really popular that I use. It's called Maman Ashtra Kriya, which is like the 22 body part relaxation where my clients would be laying down into Shavasana, the corpse pose, and we would start from the toes and kind of relax each area, coming all the way up to the crown chakra of Ajna, and kind of work through those movements. So there's a lot of traditional yoga meditation practices. The other one is mantra meditation, which I absolutely love and is something that I'm really pushing at the moment. So I try and use really authentic mantras, like obviously one, the Om mantra, the Om Namah Shivaya mantra, the Gayatri mantra, Shanti mantra. So all of these mantras and the vibrational sounds that kind of resonate from these sound have a really profound effect, not just in our bodies, but most importantly in our mind. So it's this mantra that I took into stroke rehab, the Om mantra, for instance. Regular practice with just reciting the mantra Om and listening to the mantra Om helps to create neural pathways in the brain. So why that is so prevalent with neurological patients is certain areas in their brain have died as a lack of starvation of oxygen at the time of the event when these patients have had strokes. So there's still a lot of studies in India being done. Patanjali is one of the areas that are really doing a lot of these studies right now as well. And a lot of university in India are doing quite a lot of these studies right now. But what little studies have been done by meditation like Om, the results have been really good, but there is still a lot more that needs to be done. So when I do the 5-minute meditation after each sort of session that I teach, 5-10 minutes, my clients feel awfully calm, awfully relaxed for doing that. And I think what we need to understand is whatever form of illness and conditions that we may have gone through, there is a huge element of emotional and mental effects that kind of go with that. And because they are living with these debilitating effects for literally all the time, it's sometimes very difficult for them to detach from them. So I find the Om mantra is a good tool for them to kind of use there.
Is there any particular way of practicing it, the Om mantra, or you can do it like, I would like to know from you when you are talking. Yeah.
Right. So when people are beginning to do any types of meditation, for the biggest problem yoga instructors like myself have is people can't sit still. They're always just fidgeting about.
Okay.
And you've got to understand the asanas that we use to sit in, obviously are Sukhasana, Dandasana, sitting on the floor. You can sit into Padmasana. So what I normally do in my meditation classes, I get my clients to take their mats to the edge of the wall, so they can actually lean against the wall. So if they're unable to elevate their spine and they get tired, they can just collapse into the wall, to be honest. But it doesn't always end there. I mean, asking a person to kind of sit still with their eyes closed for any length of time is really difficult, because people come out with I'm really glad you asked this, because I'm going to tell you a funny story. People come out of this thinking, oh, I'm bored. So I had one lady in one of my classes when I was teaching meditation, and she was a new lady. I had never worked with her before. Anyway, at the end of the session, I thanked her for coming. I could see during the session she was a bit fidgety, eyes kept opening and everything, but I thanked her and I said, you know, I'd love to work with you again. Anyway, during that week, I got one of the managers at work said somebody had made a complaint about me. And I said, okay. And apparently the complaint that the lady made was that the meditation wasn't enthusiastic. Okay. So to be honest, I found that to be awfully funny. And then, you know, I kind of explained, I said, well, it's a meditation. I said, you're trying to calm you down. I said, if she wants enthusiasm, she needs to go to a Zumba class. It's not what I'm offering here. So, you know, as you can see, people's perception in what meditation is basically, oh, you sit on in cross-legged, you go Om, and you do meditation. It's a little bit more than that.
Brilliant. So that actually brings my next question for you.
Go ahead.
Can you tell us a bit about what your classes are like?
Okay, so with just my yoga classes, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So I teach yoga to quite a few different categories. I do. So I teach well-abled people, where I have, at the moment, due to COVID, we're having 10 people in a class due to social distancing. Other than that, on normal circumstances, I would have about 20 people. So we would start off with a relaxation period again in the beginning of the class, and then we would start off with a little bit of a warm-up on the floor. That would include movements just to kind of manipulate the spine. And then we would move up to sort of like Surya Namaskar practices. And then I would practice one of the practices that would kind of associate with a certain type of certain body system or certain practices, and then finish off with a Om mantra, or maybe the Om Namo Shiva mantra towards the end, and also a little bit of yoga mantra reciting as well. I also teach yoga, which I use yoga as rehabilitation with my stroke patients as well. So at the moment, I do 3 Zoom classes a week with them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with them, they're all seated yoga. They are because I'm not actually physically with them, so I prefer it more safer to do seated yoga with them. So we do half an hour sessions of doing seated movements that I do, but all the movements that I do with them is, for one, Pavanamukta Asana. I do part 1 with them, the anti-rheumatic joint and muscle relief. Number 2, I do a lot of mudras with them. Mudras are fantastic because they really help to kind of work and initiate pressure points, which are kind of located in different areas of our body. So each pressure point may coincide with a different organ or a limb in the body. So this is where that's really, really helpful with them. And also I do chair-based yoga classes for other people with maybe low mobility problems as well.
Well done. Well done. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, do you have a mission as a yoga teacher? What would you like to achieve, Minakshi?
Okay. I want, for one, I really would love to see yoga to be in the schools to start with, first of all. And I think there are a lot of programs that are going on, and they are trying to initiate that, some sort of a program to get yoga into school. Definitely yoga, meditation in some schools are there, because I used to teach in schools. That kind of stopped because some of the 3-4 schools that I was working with, for one, they didn't have enough funding. Number 2, some of the teachers kind of lost a bit of interest in doing that. So that is one of the things to really see, to get children to start doing yoga. If we are able to allow children to give to work yoga from a very young age, I think that will definitely eliminate a lot of the conditions that we have at the moment. For one, obesity. Number 2, mental health problems. And, you know, when I talk about mental health problems, children as young as 5 are mentally disturbed as well. And, you know, if that is the case, then, you know, as a society, you know, something really, really has to be done there. Plus encouraging healthy diets along with this. Also trying to get yoga into almost every level in workplaces, so corporate yoga would really be beneficial as well. Taking yoga into areas where it hasn't, like things like hospitals, and I think having sort of physio like work in doing yoga with inside of people related with conditions like maybe say skeletal problems, okay, respiratory problems, which is absolutely wonderful, like pranayama and that for respiratory areas. So I know NHS are definitely looking into things like that. They're making yoga accessible for almost everybody. So this is where the yoga therapy comes into it. So when we talk about yoga therapy, I don't think many people are really aware about what yoga therapy actually is. So yoga therapy, it allows a yoga instructor like myself to work with people with all forms of different illnesses and conditions. And the reason why I kind of took my qualification, it was like about 2.5 years of studying yoga therapy in order to qualify in that. It was to kind of work with more people with illnesses and conditions. And because everywhere you go, people have some form of illness and condition going. And it's so important that every yoga instructor needs an underlined knowledge of the anatomy and physiology. Without that knowledge, it is definitely difficult to work with the general public. I'm not saying everyone needs to do it, but it's definitely important to have that, especially where yoga therapy is involved. So when I qualified as a yoga therapy, I did another 2 years of qualification of anatomy and physiology as well, because it's absolutely impossible to work with yoga clients to have more aware about, to be honest, the physiology and just the actual movement of the body, to be quite honest.
Oh, that's brilliant. And yeah, I believe, to be very honest, yoga came in my life quite late. I would say when I was 23 or 24 years old. But then since I started doing yoga, I could see that difference, and I can certainly connect to what you are saying.
Okay.
Yoga, and therefore, whenever I talk about yoga, I say yoga is the art of living. That's the new way of living. I don't do those yogas, which are really complex or about the asanas and everything, but I do the pranayams, Kapalbhati, Anulom Vilom, Vastrika Pranayam. And, you can feel that as soon as you do it, the whole day goes you feel so fresh and you can see everything differently. I don't know, but it does some magic. Yeah. So what's your advice on that? Is pranayams are good, or we should actually get into that real yoga asanas? And
you can't really do one without the other, and that's really important, because when you're doing something like Surya Namaskar, which is one of the most oldest practices from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. If you read that will really give you a clear sort of explanation of Surya Namaskar. So when you're doing Surya Namaskar, or any yoga asanas, what one needs to understand is the breath leads all the time. So when you're doing a yoga asana, you're either doing it on a conscious level, or you're either doing it on an unconscious level.
Yeah.
Okay. And my advice really would be that this is where that body and mind connection has to occur. So you have to synchronize the movement with the breath, not the other way around. You can't try and synchronize the breath with the movement, because the breath is an involuntary movement. So what that means is, through the whole day, to be honest, apart from yogis, the people that I work with don't have aware that they're breathing, because it's an involuntary movement. When you're asleep, it's still you're breathing. And thank God the breath knows what to do and the body knows what to do, because I often say to my clients, because if you had to take charge of your own breathing, I said, half of you guys would not be here.
No.
And that is the biggest thing. So this is where when we work pranayama practices and we're teaching pranayama, is to be able to teach the person to have an awareness on their breath. And that's important. So the majority of the people I work with will only breathe to the chest cavity. But what you actually should be breathing is to be more diaphragmatical breathing. So if you look at something like the mantra Om, the Om is broken down into 3 syllabuses. You have the O, the R, and the The O is the guttural diaphragmatic region. The R is the central chest cavity region. And the resides to the clavicle region. So when I teach the Om mantra and I've got that on, first of all, I get them to calm down and to sit and relax and bring just awareness on that breath. And to be honest, like Bridge, trying to get somebody to have awareness on their breath when their mind is working overtime is really difficult, okay? So first 10 minutes, I try and just get them to listen to the Om mantra, alter their stance. So you need to have absolute awareness on your spine, because your spine is the access to the universe.
Wow.
So you need to have the tailbone to the ground, and you want that lengthening through the torso, paying particular attention to the back of the neck, and sort of really get them to really concentrate on their stance. Once you've kind of got them to do that, and you can kind of see that they're really starting to calm down, they listen to the Om mantra. I make them focus on Ajna, which is the sixth energy center. And then I get them how to breathe. So we're at the pause of each Om, that's where one would do an inhalation. When you hear the mantra Om, you would exhale. So the pause, inhalation, and then when you hear the sound, the exhalation. Now, the next stage from that would be is to get them then to breathe diaphragmatically, lower, middle, upper chest.
Wow.
Lower, middle, upper. So that would be O, R, and the O, R, and the So when I break it down, and I'm actually teaching something like Mahat Pranayam. Mahat Pranayam means the grand and the complete. Something that's like the optimal and literally the foundation of breathing. So when I'm teaching something like Mahat Pranayam, I actually make them get their hands so they can actually see the movements, where they're going and what they're doing, and kind of explain the entire respiratory system in how the breath actually works with them.
Wow. Wow.
So in depth, honestly, it is, but
Yeah.
valuable.
So, can yoga be for everyone? Have you got any tips for anyone who is new to yoga? What can they do to get started? That's my question.
Okay, so I'll ask you your first question. Is yoga for everyone? Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
My youngest client I've worked with was age 4.
Wow.
And my eldest client I've worked with was 96. So I think that should answer your question quite easily.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, 100%. Yoga is for everyone. I can teach yoga to somebody who's completely in a wheelchair. They are unable to move. They are unable to talk, but I can still get them to breathe. And I had a gentleman that I worked with quite a few number of years ago, and he had MS, and he was on the much accelerated level of MS. He couldn't move. He couldn't do hardly anything. And all I used to do is to just breathe with him, teach him pranayama.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, it is. It's amazing.
So that brings my I think the second question to how many times a week do one should practice yoga, and for how long?
Okay.
Yeah. These all questions are for me, to be honest.
Yeah, ideally every day. But if you're starting, when people come into the class and they ask me this question, so I said, look, just keep coming into the class, and maybe 1 time, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever you can manage. But then they ask me, what do you do? So I said, well, I practice yoga every day. It's just something that's part of my life. It's like waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth and getting ready. Is pretty much like that. So that it's kind of a whole routine involved with it. It's a lifestyle. It's not a hobby. It's not a hobby. It's more of a lifestyle. And
can one choose any time of the day for doing yoga?
I think where we live in this modern metropolis right now, I think time is a big issue for everyone. And as a result of that, yes, definitely, it can be done anytime that you can manage to do it. Ideally, yoga is done sort of first thing in the morning as the sun comes up. So we do the Surya Namaskar. So that's kind of the sun coming up. In the evening, yoga is done with something called Surya Namaskar. That's when the sun kind of comes down. And the reasoning behind both of Surya Namaskar and Surya Namaskar is to inhale the rays of the sun in the morning as the sun comes up are most beneficial for us. And in the evening, in Surya Namaskar, when we do that, to inhale the redness of the rays of the sun in our body are awfully beneficial for us. Practicing Surya Namaskar in very warmer climates in the middle of the day outside when the sun is at its hottest is definitely not advisable. So, you kind of see a lot of people practicing outside in those sort of climates, which is not advised. Then it's better to kind of practice indoors. But definitely living, like I said, in this busy Western world is definitely trying to get it into your lifestyle as and when you can and still benefit from it, definitely.
Well, so no, thank you very much for bringing that Surya Namaskar thing, because my next question is about Surya Namaskar. I was hearing somewhere, some of the yogis, they were mentioning about if you can't do yoga, if you can't do all these asanas or breathing exercises, make sure you're doing Surya Namaskar not once in a day, but make sure you're doing Surya Namaskar at least, because that covers everything. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100% it does. Surya Namaskar, again, it's like one of the most fundamental practice. And I teach Surya Namaskar in every single class that I do. Even though some of the clients do complain at the fact that, you do the same thing. And I said, well, this is such an important practice for you to do. And because you are beginners, it's not worth doing harder asanas with you at this stage. So Surya Namaskar, if I kind of explain sort of on a Western level, then I think a lot of people may understand it. Surya Namaskar is a cardiovascular workout, if you look at it that way. It works every single large muscle group in the body. So it works your muscular strength endurance. It works your cardiac, your respiratory system as well. So definitely working that. It's your cardiovascular. So you are definitely working your heart and the flow of blood and oxygen around your body.
Wow.
Surya Namaskar is also your stretching. So that's where the flexibility comes into that as well. And Surya Namaskar also works bone density. So it works your skeletal system as well. So a lot of people turn around and say to me, I need to get a really good workout. So I said, okay, let's try 10 rounds of Surya Namaskar. So 10 rounds of Surya Namaskar is kind of equivalent to 1 hour of step aerobics.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of 1 hour. But the only difference is in one full round of Surya Namaskar, you've covered your cardiovascular, you've covered your respiratory system, you've covered your muscular strength endurance, your bone density. So and the stretching that comes with it. If you went to a step aerobic class, you'd have to do the warm up to start with, then the cardiovascular, then a little bit of weights to cover your muscular strength endurance as well. But then you would also have to do a stretch, but there would be no awareness of your breath. And the entire movement of Surya Namaskar is synchronized with your breathing. And that's what the most amazing thing about yoga is. With every argument that you may have a derogatory perception of yoga, we've got proof to argue that completely. And that's what I love about yoga.
So well said, Minakshi. I mean, you've got quite deep, intense knowledge of yoga, I must say. So my next question is, tell us more about, I know you kind of cover your story before yoga, but I would like to know the difference of your life before yoga, after yoga.
Okay. I'm really glad you asked me this because when I started initially teaching yoga, like my teacher said, he was like working with a dead corpse, and I totally agree with him. Absolutely. Up there, I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But as I kind of delved more into yoga, I kind of learned a lot. When I was younger, I used to ask everything, why, but why? And I think I drove mummy and papa absolutely mad by doing that, okay? So they were really pleased when I met my yoga teacher. In the last about 5 to 7 years, I've kind of dwelled a little bit more into kind of the history of India. And everywhere that I've gone, the links kind of somehow come back to yoga. Everywhere. No matter what is being said outside in different parts of the world, the links come back into Bharat. And it's phenomenal. So when we look at our places of worship, like the temples, when we look at our diet, we look at the way of life, we look at the rituals. When we look at all of these things, I now kind of can add and kind of put the dots together in all the questions that I used to ask my mother and father when I was younger. It all kind of really makes sense. And what's really wonderful, everything about Sanatana Dharma and this path of yoga that we are following, it's all to do with the human anatomy. It's all to do with our health and our entire existence here. And what used to really baffle me, I wanted to get to the end of this history. Like, where did it all start? You know, I watched the Mahabharata, I read the Bhagavad Gita, you know, I try, and, you know, I've got the couple of other Srimati Bhagavatam. I try and read some of those books. I ask questions. I have a connection with Bhagavati Vedanta Manor. I have a couple of people who I keep in contact with and I'm able to talk to. So I feel myself to be awfully privileged to be able to kind of connect with certain people like that. And plus teaching yoga online, I've connected with quite a few different gurus and rishis online from India, which is absolutely wonderful as well. But there was always, where did this all start? And nobody, not one book could answer that question. But in the lockdown, I took this course about the Bhagavad Gita which is running by the School of Bhakti from Bhagavati Vedanta Manor. And it was like a 10-week course on the Bhagavad Gita, which was just phenomenal. It really is such a brilliant course to do. And there was one question somebody asked on that: who created Om? Wow. And then the guru who was teaching, he went, the Om was never created. And it was at that point I went, oh my God, that's just answered all my questions within inside of that few seconds. And that's when I realized that this culture was never created. This culture has always been here. Yoga has always been there, because I always questioned, everywhere I would read articles about yoga, it had this 5,000 years ago in the Indus Valley. And I'm like thinking, that's not true. It's not 5,000 years. When you look at some of our temples and you look at like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, it can't be 5,000 years. I always questioned it. So whenever I write my articles, I don't know if you've ever read any of the captions that I write, I always like ageless and ancient. I will never write 5,000 years. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I won't write 5,000 years, because it's not 5,000 years. And I'm 100% sure of that now. It's ageless. So, you know, to be born inside of a culture that has everything to do and the benefit to do with your health, because it's not a religion, where it's a spiritual path. And everything is to do with your health. And my passion has always been my health, because I've always said my body is my temple. So I'm very mindful about what I eat, what products that I use and so forth, to be quite honest. So yeah, so I think this lockdown has been the most wonderful thing for myself. And it's definitely brought so many revelations which are just mind-blowing. Definitely.
You know, Minakshi, we all have challenges in our
Yeah.
life, right? And how actually yoga does help coming out of it? How actually yoga can help us coming out of all these challenges, obstacles in life, you know, the problems in life?
Yeah, definitely. I get this question all the time when I'm teaching, and some days in yoga classes, we spend half the class, people just want to talk. Listen, all the challenges that we have in life and the experiences we have gained as a result of them, they need to be embraced. They don't need to, we can't turn around and say bad experiences and good experiences. Do you understand? We always, I think people always go and say, oh, I'm having a really tough year, or I've had a tough, but when we're happy, we don't go around saying, hey, I'm really happy at the moment because life is just really buzzing, do
Yeah,
we? We don't, nobody
yeah.
ever says that, but we tend to complain about the bad. Now, my perception of bad experiences, and I think just because I sit at this end of the class, that doesn't mean my life has been a bed of roses, because it definitely hasn't. The knowledge that I've attained over the period of time that I have has a lot to do with experiences in my own life. I don't look at bad experiences as being bad. You know, I try and look at them as a lesson, and most importantly, of how can I change that. So it's not about changing the bad experience or somebody who may have caused that bad experience. It's about changing your perception of how you look at it. But yes, we've all had a rough ride from time to time. And the way I deal with it is, every person out there who may have caused some issues or problems in my life, I would thank them for it. I would definitely thank them for it. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here where I am today.
Wow,
And that's the really important thing.
that's the important thing.
That is the important thing, because any time when you've hit rock bottom,
Yeah,
the more times you hit rock bottom, the better it is, because you are going to come back, stand up stronger. So you've kind of already won whatever battle that somebody else might be fighting against you. Does that make sense?
it is.
So standing up and just getting back up there and doing what is important and rebuilding this again is really important. But don't carry, and this is one thing I do, because a lot of people say, you know, they use the word like hate and anger. Don't carry those sort of emotions with you. So I choose to love everyone, even mostly the people that have actually caused the most amount of hurt. They get the most amount of love, because it's much better for me, if that makes sense, you know. I don't want to give anybody, and I don't give anybody the privilege to make me happy or to make me sad or to make me angry. Nobody has that privilege, and I won't allow that.
Does yoga can control your emotions?
100%, yeah. 100%. It's about learning to detach from them. So if you look at the story of Mahabharata, gives a brilliant explanation of that just before Sri Krishna recites the Gita to Arjun. He's standing in front of all his relatives, yeah? Everyone he's grown up with, all his loved ones there, you know? Even though as much as Duryodhan and the conflict between Arjun still doesn't want to fight with them. So that's when Sri Krishna actually kind of teaches Arjun about that detachment of emotions, because at the end of the day, the Bhagavad Gita is on the basis of what is truthful and something that isn't. So when we look at that in our life, listen, you know, we have modern day Ravans and Duryodhans in almost every single home out there, right? We have, and they are all carrying this hamkar with them, this ego, okay? And one of the very few lessons that I've learned from my papa, he always said, bow down before you break. You know, that's an amazing lesson that I learned. You know, don't ever be ashamed, and don't ever be egoistic enough not to bow down, because bowing down is better than breaking. So where you do have these modern day Ravans and Duryodhans, their problem is exactly that, because they are driven by Hamkar.
Yeah.
And when you are driven
yeah. I asked that question because obviously you were talking about, controlling your anger, controlling your sort of emotions. They all are the part of emotions, isn't it? And therefore, I believe yoga has to play a vital role. If you're kind of into yoga, that certainly keeps you kind of balanced, I would say. I don't know how to put it, but yoga certainly helps in a positive way.
I think what you're trying to say there, Bridge, is about yoga grounds us. Yoga
that's right. Yeah.
Grounding, and from that grounding comes balance. And the balance that we're talking about is the balance within inside of the mind. And when we look at things, we have to look at things more sort of in a pragmatic manner. And that's what's really important there. About about having the ability of not to react. That's important.
That's the important thing.
That's really important. So how I control the non-reaction is a bit of sarcasm. And I look at sarcasm as a very intellectual wit. And that tends to work for me. So yeah, that's how I deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Means,
but I don't think it would work for everybody at the end of the day.
No, I completely agree with you. But at least we can start taking that positive thing what yoga has to offer. Means we are kind of taking so much negativity from everywhere. We are not kind of looking at the positivity of something. Like when you were talking about 2020 and lockdown and everything, you utilized it, isn't it? You kind of get into it. You try to explore more and more about yoga and
definitely
asanas, and you were on with your classes on Zoom, I believe, right?
Yes, definitely. I do Facebook Live every day at 4:00.
Okay.
And I do 3 Zoom sessions for my stroke patients in a week. So I do that. And that was something I've been teaching yoga via Facebook Live literally from March, when I went into the first lockdown. And then I stopped kind of when I went back to work, but I was still carrying on documenting all the work that I do. I think when I look at lockdown, when we go back into March, I'm going to kind of go back to November 19. And I'll tell you why that was kind of so prevalent, because in November 19, I had a slight accident at work where I had 2 fractures and a damaged ligament to my right foot. So I was laid off of work literally from the end of November right the way up into January, so right the way through Christmas. And I was very tired, I guess, but I had a lot of plans. I was due to be going away after Christmas, but none of those plans worked out. Anyway, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes we don't recognize when our body requires a rest. And as an instructor, I work 7 days a week, okay, when I'm working 7 days a week. So I don't literally get one full day off of rest at all. But I remember at that time in November, I was so looking forward to my January annual leave, because I was going to be off for about like 3 weeks and then come back fresh into January of 20. But obviously, him up there had other plans for me, and I needed the rest then. So anyway, I was at home, but that time that I spent at home nursing my own health back again really gave me a huge time to reflect, because I was in a cast, I couldn't walk. I was shuffling on the floor, moving around. Climbing up the stairs was really, really difficult for me. But what it really taught me was exactly what my stroke patients go through every day of their life. So it was a really humbling experience for me to have gone through that. And it's probably one of the best experiences that I went through. Wow. So obviously then when we came back into January, we worked for about a few months, and then straight away we were into lockdown. And it was at that time from November, I knew, and I kind of felt that a lot of things didn't feel right. something didn't feel right about, there was, in the atmosphere. And then here we are. But I think you have to utilize time properly. Definitely. Can't let it go to waste.
So the interested people, the audience, how actually they can contact you or join for your classes?
If they, well, obviously they can do the Facebook classes that I do every day, but I live in London. But if they want to contact me via, they can message me on Messenger if they want to, definitely. And if they live in London and they're around, they can definitely join up. And if they just message me, then we can definitely take that conversation forward.
Yeah, just for our viewers, I would like to just let you know, I'm going to share the link of Minakshi Parmar afterward. So then any interested, the viewers or the audience, anyone interested, they can actually click the link and contact Minakshi. And from there, you can plan your stuff. Yoga is the way, I have always said. And I'm quite interested in your classes, because the way you explain things, it kind of giving me an idea that you are qualified yoga instructor who has got every bit of it, kind of even your way of explaining, breaking down the Om, the basic. But not many yoga instructor has got it right, So we can have thousands of yoga instructor. They can just say that they can do yoga, but they haven't got that chemistry. You know what I mean? Breaking down that yoga, that deep knowledge about yoga. It's not only about doing asanas or breathing exercise. It's all about balancing your life and doing it in the right way.
Definitely. I think I've really been fortunate. I've taken something that I'm so passionate about, which was my health, then yoga. So it's my passion about being healthy. And I've kind of turned that into a career. So I look at myself to be very, very fortunate, not waking up in the morning. Has there ever been a day when I think, oh my God, I don't want to teach yoga today, or I don't want to go to work or anything like that, because I live and breathe yoga, and I live a yogic and an Ayurvedic lifestyle. So whatever I do outside, I do personally as well. So, that's the most important thing of who we are. We have to try and remember to be who we are, the same person, publicly, privately, and personally. And that is really important. So when we do yoga, it's not just about yoga. It's that entire thing about following the Ayurvedic lifestyle as well. And that is what's so really, really important, the food that we eat, because food has to be looked as medicinal, because that plays a big part of our health, to be honest. So, if you want to do it, you want to kind of gradually kind of embrace the entirety of what sort of yoga is sort of all about.
जाते जाते मीनाक्षी जी एक last question होगा कि any advice for people who think they don't have time for yoga and how can they fit it into daily life and make it a habit? जाते जाते आप ये बताती जाएं तो that will be great, क्योंकि ये question सभी पूछते हैं.
This really does reflect on how much you value your lives at the end of the day. Work is always going to be around, and there's no doubt about that, but one thing we need to understand as human beings, we are replaceable. So if tomorrow something happened to us, our companies can replace us almost immediately. So what I would really urge people to do is to really get on that path of yoga and begin to live the basic life of yoga, because that is really going to be the way forward in to be able to achieve optimal health. That's something I would say.
So thank you very much, Minakshi Parmar ji. आज आप हमारे प्रोग्राम में आए and you did share the very valuable information regarding the yoga, how that can be, the daily routine of your lifestyle. You have actually explained everything हाउ शुड आई से, मीन्स आपने पूरा तोड़ के उसे एक्सप्लेन किया योगा को, जितना सिंपलर वे हो सकता था. द वे यू एक्सप्लेन इज काइंड ऑफ इंटरेस्टिंग एंड सर्टनली दैट मोटिवेट्स मी to do more yoga if I have more time. And also, I'm sure the viewers, whoever are watching it, the audience, whoever is listening to it, they all would be motivated and put their, more time into yoga, because yoga keeps you fit. And that's the best way going forward. Thank you, Minakshi ji. Have a good day. And thanks for joining us and giving your valuable time and valuable lessons regarding yoga.
Thank you. Namaskar.
नमस्कार. तो जी हाँ दोस्तों, योगा से होगा ऐसा कई बार बोला गया है, और रामदेव बाबा ने जिस तरीके से योगा को पॉपुलर किया, वैसे ही मीनाक्षी परमार जी हमारे लंदन में रह करके योगा को प्रमोट कर रही हैं और योगा को करने के लिए मोटिवेट कर रही हैं. योगा से ही होगा, बिल्कुल. जिम करने वाले जिम भी करें, लेकिन योगा के लिए थोड़ा सा वक्त निकालें और योगा पे अपना ध्यान दें, क्योंकि जो आपके सांस लेने की प्रक्रिया है उस पे अगर आपका कंट्रोल होता है तो आप जिंदगी को बहुत ही आसान बना लेते हैं. ऐसे ही देखते रहिए, सुनते रहिए ब्रिजवाणी. कोशिश करता हूं आप सबों के लिए कुछ ना कुछ लाता रहूं जो आपको मोटिवेट करते रहे, जो आपको इंस्पायर करते रहे. और कुछ ऐसे अनसंग हीरोज हैं, कुछ ऐसे टैलेंट्स हैं जो कि छिपे हुए हैं, उनको भी मैं कहीं कहीं से ढूंढ करके आप सबों के लिए लाता हूं. ब्रिजवाणी को लाइक करें, फॉलो करें तो थोड़ा सपोर्ट मिलेगा. यूट्यूब का चैनल ब्रिजवाणी, उसे सब्सक्राइब करें तो और भी मदद मिलेगी. आपका प्यार मिलता रहता है, और ऐसे ही प्यार बनाए रखें तो क्या होता है कि हम जुड़े रहते हैं और मजा ही मजा है लाइफ में. खुश रहो, मस्त रहो, और ब्रिजवाणी